impromptu surprise live stream. Yes, my third one in the last 2 days. We know about the Wednesday live stream, 12 p.m. Eastern, where I go in on everything that's happening in sports, and then I do my podcast pregame, which I released my podcast earlier this afternoon, which brought you up to speed, at least so I thought, when it came to the MLB trade deadline. But guess what? The reason why I'm here right now is to unpack all that has unfolded over the last 6 hours. And there still may be some news trickling in, if I'm not mistaken. Let me refresh this page. I could go back and forth on Twitter. I'm going all over the place just to make sure that once I sign off that everything is up to snuff. And I got news for you. 27 hours ago, I had really thought about this forthcoming trade deadline. And yes, did I think there were going to be some trades? Absolutely. It wasn't going to go quietly into the night. It wasn't going to be a scenario where you were going to get relievers go here or utility players go there or maybe a former all-star going somewhere on a team that certainly needs some reinforcements. Of course, there's always going to be activity. But considering prior to 3 p.m. yesterday, up until this past weekend where you had a smattering of trades, Yankees getting Ryan McMahon, the Mets getting Gregory Soto, the Mariners getting Josh Naylor, and yeah, a couple other trades that trickled in. But other than that, you really hadn't had much. And it was a situation where it really made me think whether or not that the trade deadline was just going to go out like a lamb and certainly not out like a lion the way it did. And even with the podcast, you could definitely go check it out. Please, I implore you to do so here on YouTube. I have the video out on my channel. If you're more audio with your earbuds or headphones where you want to listen to it while you're commuting or shopping, whatever, you could go to Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, obviously Spotify. It's on there, the JAYREELZ podcast, of course. And all I got to say is from what had transpired up until I finished recording, which was, I think, right before noon. I had a late start this morning. And I tell you, my head is still spinning after all that has happened here. And all I'll do is break down every little detail. If you want to know what happened there last night, I talk about Eugenio Suarez going to the Mariners. I also talk about the big trades that the Mets and Phillies made for their bullpen. And they've gone touche as well when it comes to outfielders being traded to their teams, which I'll get to in a minute. Trades that happened this afternoon, including one with a former Met that's now part of the enemy down the Northeast corridor. But with yesterday's deals, you definitely want to check the podcast. I'm not going to rehash Suarez and the trades that were made yesterday. Some of the even minor trades, Steven Matz going to Boston. I'm going to talk about what has happened for the most part today. And even when I was recording my podcast, the surprise deal I thought of the day, well, maybe second now, considering the big one. And let me start there. What the hell? I talked about this morning how Carlos Correa was rumored to maybe go back to the Astros. And I thought to myself, if I'm Houston, I wouldn't go there. And I understand that Isaac Paredes is going to be out for the rest of the year. They don't have a third baseman. Now, Correa is going to play third because Jeremy Pena is going to play short. So to have Correa back in the mix, who obviously well familiar with that organization, team, etc., and for him to go back there, and I don't know what the deal was. Let me see if I can pull that up. He had to waive his no-trade clause, and I'm sure he got traded for a couple of prospects. And mind you, he's owed $91 million over the next 2 years. They have club options after that. So the Twins, they got rid of that deal. Twins were wheeling and dealing, trading off a lot of pieces. Obviously, their closer yesterday, former closer now, in Joan Duran, who went to Philadelphia. And with this deal by the Astros, it doesn't really say who they traded him for. Now, they got another pickup, which I thought was very wise, very smart on their part. They got the Marlins outfielder Jesus Sanchez, and of course the situation with Yordan Alvarez. Now, granted, Sanchez is not absolutely baseball purist, and I'm going to unpack that. And I'm just going to talk about what they did today, and obviously what you talked about yesterday on the live stream pretty much came to fruition. I know you had Helsley up there. Who are the other two guys you had? I don't know. You may have had Mullins on there. I know I've talked about Mullins for weeks. And there was another guy because you had three guys up there. I'm talking about Correa right now, and that was, to me, that was the biggest surprise. 1A, which I'll get to in a minute, is what the Padres did. But for Correa to go back and they owe him all that money, and Correa, let me tell you something, he's a shell of his old self. Oh, Alcantara and Roberts. And they did mention, yeah, I think the Mets were curious about Robert, but they decided to go Mullins, which, hey, listen, you can't go wrong. I know Mullins has been hitting better of late, and he'll add a little offensive punch that they need, especially from the outfield position, from center field. Because Tyrone Taylor, although good glove, he's not a big stick. But for Correa, I even mentioned on the podcast earlier today how I felt Correa is a little long in the tooth. That's not to say he's not going to perform. That's not to say he won't produce. And for Correa, who's had big-time postseason moments, he's been a guy that has shined when it comes to him in a big moment, spotlight moment. He's had big home runs. Ask the Yankee fan over the years in the ALCSs. He's come up in big and huge spots. And that's not to say it's going to automatically translate if the Astros lose get to October. Val, what's going on, my man? I know he's got to be hurting right now. Giants didn't really do anything. And, of course, they already made their move last month with Rafael Devers. But when Correa, I saw that go down, I was really surprised because they owe him all that money. He's hit, 7 home runs this year? And I know he's been in and out of the lineup, but to me, he's a shell of his old self. And even though he's 30 years old, he's still relatively young, but he's got a lot of miles, a lot of injuries, etc. Yeah, Giants, I know, swept by the Pirates. But the Jesus Sanchez, I really like that deal. Sanchez is a young player, good stick. They have a couple more years left for him as far as my computer just went out. That's not good. There we go. Where he has a lot of value, and I don't expect him to do that much. Now, of course, Yordan Alvarez is really tough to replace his production, and we haven't seen him on the field all year, but Sanchez gives you a little youth, gives you a little enthusiasm, and watching him in the NL East play against the Mets a lot, that is even more of an underlying big pickup than Correa, I think. And I understand they needed a third baseman, and he's going to play third, so that was a big shock there. The other surprise that I didn't see coming, and I talked about on the podcast today, was the Padres. Now, they made 2 deals. The first one, they bring in from the A's a lefty, J.P. Sears, but they were able to get Mason Miller. And I'm surprised. If you're the Athletics, why are you in business? Here they were. They re-signed 2 of their players, Brent Rooker and Lawrence Butler. They bring in none other than Luis Severino to anchor that staff, and we know that the A's have had a bad year. And mind you, they have actually swept the Astros last weekend, if you recall. But to think they already decided to punt on Miller, who obviously is a young arm. He's a guy that is certainly is going to be a top closer, you would think. And even though he plays in Sacramento, a lot of people may not have him on their radar, but I know he's got an electric arm. And now he goes to San Diego, and the Padres also made another deal with the Orioles where they got Ryan O'Hearn, who may play first base, also DH quite possibly. And Ramon Laureano is a good outfielder, bounced around, played with the A's, a bunch of other teams. And now they got those 2 guys in the mix. And the Padres, they pretty much have remained quiet. They didn't really do much. Yeah, I know. That's the one thing. He does throw hard. He throws almost 105. Definitely throws over 100. Thank you, Val. I appreciate that. We said Matt Chapman. Yes, I know. And the thing is that their offense has really been in a tough go-around here over the last week or so. But for the Padres, they made some very shrewd moves, and I think that was also based on what the Mets have done, the Phillies. I'm sure they probably looked, maybe not so much the Dodgers. And the Dodgers, they haven't done anything, which I would expect. They're going to wait for everybody to be healthy. Let me see. Has anybody else come down the pike? I'm just going to refresh this page. Hold on one second. Yeah, there were other. All right, here's a few right here. Oh, wow. Look at all these. This just happened in the last few minutes. And, of course, all right. So the Red Sox are good. All right, wait. Let me start from the top here. On a low-key level, Tigers are going to, they traded for Charlie Morton. Big whoop. Morton is 41 years of age. Baltimore, I understand he's a veteran, knows his way around playoff baseball, Tigers. To me, that's a good pickup because you can put him in as a fifth starter and you won't expect a lot out of him, or maybe even come out of the bullpen in the postseason. I thought that's a shrewd pickup. Tigers didn't have to pay a lot, so that's number one. The Rays, for whatever the reason, they're acquiring Griffin Jax, the kid from Minnesota. Now, the Rays, they always make shrewd deals, and they feel like they may be a fringe playoff team. Who knows there? But now here are the two big acquisitions here. Yankees, now, Val, hang on to your seat. Yankees are going to trade for Camilo Doval, the closer there in San Francisco. And yes, reported by Jack Curry of the Yes Network. And Doval obviously has another live arm. Giants, I know, it almost looks like they're selling. Like, why would they trade their closer? I wonder what the Yankees are going to send back. And I don't know, I'm sure he probably still has. Yeah, they don't have much because obviously this trade probably just came down the last few minutes. So I don't know who the Yankees have given up. But to think, Yankees, when they see, and listen, I know that they're reading the tea leaves. They're looking at what Houston just did. They're looking at what the Tigers have done. Lesser scale deals, but still. And they've seen what Toronto has done here as they've tried to. Now, I don't know what Shane Bieber's going to do, considering that he's coming back from Tommy John. But Doval is a guy that I didn't think was going to be on anybody's radar. And with the Mets and what they've done with their closing situation, I'm sure they probably looked at that and said, hey, this is touche to strike across the bow toward the Met fan. And they're not going to admit that. They're going to look at that as, well, hey, we're just worried about our team, which they are. But I'm sure they see what's happening across town. They're like, oh, wait a second. So therefore, they trade for Camilo Doval. And on top of that, they also got, to me, which was no big deal. I know they acquired from Colorado Jake Bird, but that guy is, to me, he's just going to be mop-up. I don't expect him to really be in big situations to where he's going to be in high-pressure spots. But the Yankees making a last-ditch effort, and the Blue Jays, they acquired Ty France. He's also bounced around too. And Lewis Varland from the Twins. So the Twins, you talk about just unloading everybody here at the deadline. The Red Sox, Dustin May. Now, here's a guy that obviously had a lot of promise, a lot of potential. And May, who knows? The Red Sox could always use some more pitching. I don't know how effective he's going to be. He's been in and out of the lineup. And as we all know, those Dodger pitchers get hurt with the quickness. Now, the Padres, they get Nestor Cortez. Big whoop there. I see that here. That just came through. Texas gets Phil Maton. Obviously, Met fans are familiar with him. The Rays also acquire Adrian Hauser, who actually had done pretty well. Now, Hauser was also on the Mets, but we understand that was a disaster. So the Rays make a couple of, and also Taj Bradley from the Twins. Oh, wait, hold on. Wait, Taj Bradley, he was on the Rays. Yeah, they traded Taj Bradley to Minnesota for Griffin Jax. And after what happened last night, Pete Fairbanks, that was also not a good look there for the Rays as they needed that win. And they're currently losing 7-4 in what is a rain-delayed, and it's going to top 9 now. Let me refresh this page just to make sure. All right, so the Knicks got to throw in the mix there. 4 years, $150 million for Mikal Bridges. I wouldn't have done that. I mean, I know they had to. They traded 4 first-round picks, so you know that they were going to. All right, I know I'm getting off the baseball as I see this deal go down with the Knicks extending Mikal Bridges. Let me go back to this other page. I know I got it underneath my phone. So, yeah, you talk about wheeling and dealing. And here I was talking about the Padres, and I wanted to see whatever last-minute deals. And I know the Red Sox, look, they were trying to get in on Joe Ryan from the Twins. Came up short there. Any other deals that have come down here, down the pike? Nah, nothing of note. James Outman gets traded for Brock Stewart. So Outman goes to Minnesota, and the Dodgers get a reliever. Yeah, I mean, you talk about the Twins and unloading of players. Wow. All right, now let me go back because I was talking about the Padres and what they did, and I want to go through some of the other trades that took place today. Now, the Tigers also got 2 relievers. Paul Sewald, who is a former Met, bounced around Cleveland, Seattle, Arizona. The Valverde, I know, I didn't think it was going to happen too, Val. I'm very surprised there. And just goes to show you, man, I'm not saying the Giants are punting the season, but they probably figured, hey, now I'm curious to know what they got back. Because the Val, I believe, still has service time. He probably still has a couple of years before he will become a free agent. So the Yankees, I mean, they had to give up something for him. You know, they weren't just going to give up low-level prospects for Val. And I'm trying to find that here to see what the latest is there. But as far as the Tigers, like I said, they made 2 big trades to get relievers. And as I mentioned, they got Charlie Morton too, so they refortified their rotation, their bullpen, which they needed in the worst way. So kudos to the Tigers. Now, the Yankees also picked up David Bednar from the Pirates. Now, with Bednar, Doval, it kind of reminds me of what the Mets have just done because obviously they got Tyler Rogers yesterday and also got Ryan Helsley, who I'm a little about. Listen to the podcast that I posted earlier today to get more on that. But yeah, all these deals that went down, the Mets getting Cedric Mullins, that was a guy that I thought that they would probably target. I know Luis Robert Jr. of the White Sox was also on their radar, but I guess maybe that was a little bit too rich for their blood, so they traded for Mullins. Now the Rangers get Merrill Kelly from the Diamondbacks, and Kelly was going to be a free agent at the end of the year. I don't know about Zach Gallen. I guess Gallen's going to stay in the desert for now unless something comes down the pike. Now, it is 6/17, but sometimes these deals were made prior to the 6 p.m. deadline. It's just a matter of which players are going where and making sure that even though that the trade may not be official until after 6, I would think maybe as late as 7 o'clock. I don't know how late I'm going to stay on here, but I tell you, the Rangers get a good starter to go along with Jacob deGrom and Nathan Eovaldi. So that was a big move there by the Rangers. And I think they acquired somebody else too, if I'm not mistaken. Oh, they also got Danny Colombi, a lefty from the... Who else? From the Twins. I mean, the Twins, you talk about a fire sale. You could have gotten anybody. I'm sure Byron Buxton wasn't on the IL, they would have probably shipped him out, considering the guy's made out of plastic. Hate to say it, but it's the truth. And also today you had, I talked about the O'Hearn deal. You had Harrison Bader. He's the guy I talked about earlier, who the Phillies picked up from the Twins again. And if I had to look at the Twins, I mean, who are they going to field? They got a bunch of minor leaguers. You talk about a roster overhaul in Minnesota. I mean, I hope whatever prospects they get back, you would only hope that 3 of them flourish, considering they probably got, who knows, maybe up to 10, if not more. I mean, think about it. Griffin Jack's gone. Joan Duran gone. You also have Harrison Bader gone. A lot of these guys just jettisoned. I mean, I don't even know what to... It makes your head spin. It really does. But when I look at some of these deals, I pretty much covered them. Yeah, Finnegan from Washington, Sewald from Cleveland goes to the Tigers. This is a recap in here. Harrison Bader from Minnesota to Philly. David Bednar, as I mentioned, from Pittsburgh to the Yanks. Cedric Mullins from Baltimore to the Mets. Carlos Correa, shocking deal there. And Jesus Sanchez. I'm sure they saw what Seattle did with Naylor, as well as Eugenio Suarez, so you know they had to make a move. San Diego picks up Ryan O'Hearn, Ramon Laureano, the outfielder, as well as Mason Miller and J.P. Sears. Merrill Kelly, as we talked about, Texas gets from the Diamondbacks. And then the ones that just came down the pipe, the Giants trade Camilo Doval, they're closer to the Yankees. Charlie Morton goes from Baltimore to Detroit. The Blue Jays, get Luis Varland and Ty France. Again, 2 guys from the Twins. Griffin Jax goes to the Rays for Taj Bradley. Rangers acquire Phil Maton. No, I did not expect the Giants to trade Duvall. I mean, the Giants are what, 6 games back in the wild card? Let me pull up their stats here, or the standings. NL wild card. Giants 6 back. They're a game under 500, and now they're going east to play the Mets. I'm sure they're probably going to play another team here on the East Coast before they head back west. I mean, they probably thought that. Listen. They probably felt they could get somebody good, and they did. Yeah, I didn't even mention about Twins trading Will Castro, another one to the Cubs, as he gets sent to the Windy City. Another guy, I mean, I don't know who the Twins are going to field starting tomorrow. I mean, I really don't. Yeah, absolutely, Val. Now, let me see if anything else had come down. Yeah, I got to refresh this page because, there's always going to be something that pops up. And the good thing about it is that I don't have to talk about this on the podcast. Yeah, maybe the big deals. I'm not going to talk about a lot of the smaller ones. Oh, here's one that just came down the pike. Get ready, Val, if you're still on. Royals acquiring outfielder Mike Yastrzemski. Last-minute deadline swap. Doesn't say for who, more to come. Wow. Giants, look, I guess they were sellers. They probably looked at it. The hell with it. Let's just punt the season. Reset. And it's going to be tough because they got a lot of big-time contracts on that team. Devers, Chapman, Adames, the Korean outfielder, Robbie Ray. Val, I hope, yep, exactly. That's their record. They're under 500, a game under right now. Yeah, Dustin May to the Red Sox, Nestor Cortez, Padres. Yeah, wow. You talk about wheeling and dealing. That's why I had to refresh. I got to keep refreshing this page because who knows what's going to happen here on MLBTradeRumors.com. That could be the last of it. I mean, that's a last-minute swap. I mean, I don't know. Unless the Marcelo Zunas of the world, the Jaron Durant, who I don't think will get traded, or the Red Sox, and Joe Ryan. Listen, the Twins have traded everybody here, so it's I got news for you. I wouldn't be shocked if you're going to get something last minute here. Now, I'm going to probably hang on for another 15 minutes because I figure by 6:45, things will cool off. And then if not, if something does come down the pike, I'll put it up on one of my shorts here on YouTube. I appreciate those who hop on board, to Val, to Baseball Purist, anybody else. Please say hi. Don't be shy. Leave a comment. Tell me how you feel about what's happening here. I know also, which I'll talk about on my shorts with Mikal Bridges. That's basketball NBA. I know nobody cares about that right now. And then the Royals get Mike Yastrzemski, which is weird because the Royals, yeah, they're in that purgatory-ish. I understand they're 3 back. They're also a game under 500 behind the Mariners. Yeah, I mean, little surprise there. But I tell you, this is probably one of the crazier deadlines, only because you didn't have any activity pretty much from Monday till about yesterday around 3 o'clock. And then that's when the trade rumors, the acquisitions, trades went berserk. Mets trading for relievers, Phillies trading for relievers. You had Suarez get dealt last night, and then everything that's happened today. I mean, Yankees with Bednar, Padres with both O'Hearn, Mason Miller, Correa going back to the Astros, Jesus Sanchez, a good young player, also going to the Astros. Then you get the Yankees acquiring Camilo Doval. I mean, geez. Unbelievable how this all shook down here in the last few minutes. And then, of course, the minor deals, Mike Yastrzemski and the Phil Matons. I mean, no big whoop there. Charlie Morton, Dustin May going from the Dodgers to Red Sox. Merrill Kelly going to the Rangers. Obviously, these are all deals that I talked about, but as I recount all this, and pretty much I'm going to land this plane here because I wouldn't be, I'll go to 6:30. I'll hang on for another 5 minutes because I'd be surprised if another deal happens to come down the pike that maybe for whatever reason hasn't been official, but they just want to make sure that all the I's are dotted and T's are crossed in order for it to be released, despite the fact that the deadline has come and gone. But man, I don't even know what to say. Crazy time. A lot of deals that were made. And I'm not going to go, you could go through winners and losers and break that down. Oh, JAYREELZ, I will say this. I think the Mets did, between their bullpen, you bring in 3 guys for that bullpen. You also bring in Mullins, a center fielder. You're going to go with the starters and what they have. Now, Vientos, Beatty, Mauricio, they're still there as of now, unless something crazy happens. Because for Mullins, I don't know what they traded. Let me see. I'll take a peek there. I think they traded, pitching prospects, Ramon Gomez, Anthony Nunez, and Chandler Marsh. And, look at that. Jesse Winker has been transferred to the 60-day injured list. I mean, he came back for a little bit, but he's been out of the lineup since May. And Mullins, let's see. He's in a pennant race. I'm sure he's going to be ecstatic. Change of scenery. He's been with the Orioles for 8 years. And yes, I know Jose Siri, but he fractured his leg. I don't expect him back. We know about Sir Anthony Dominguez going to Toronto. And that's what you got. Mets have been using Brett Beatty. Please. Vientos, Mauricio, Acuna. So right now, I think that's going to be it. All will be quiet, I would think, as of right this moment. Let me see as I refresh the page. Nothing's happened there. I'll even go ESPN for that matter. And the ESPN, they're always late to the game, and they could care less about baseball. MLBTradeRumors.com. Didn't expect that either. Now, I don't know what they traded for Yastrzemski there, Val. Yankees win, so they gain a half game. And they're now, 2.5 behind the Blue Jays for first place. And as we talked about the schedule earlier on the podcast, Yankees go to Miami for the weekend to play the Marlins, while Toronto, they have Kansas City coming into town. So we'll see how that shakes down. And the Marlins trading Jesus Sanchez, as I mentioned earlier. That's pretty much it. I don't see anything that's going to take place here. I'd be shocked. I'll hang on for a couple more minutes, but after that, I will sign off and brought you up to speed. I tell you, it was a wild day in baseball. And like I mentioned, if anything happens after I sign off, no, I did not expect the Giants to do that. I didn't expect them to go in full sale mode. Listen, I know that they've been poor, Val. They've lost 6 in a row and certainly have really fallen out of the NL West. Not only just the race there, but even the wild card now, 6-pack. It's not insurmountable, but I guess they felt, you know what? If we could trade a couple of players, get some return. Doval and Yastrzemski, those are 2 surprises. I was not expecting that at all. And let's see what they got from him. As a matter of fact, I know, because this is just so recent. Let me go to the file. Hold on. Nothing. They don't have nothing yet. More to come. That's all I got right now. Jai Saval, Mike traded, did not expect that. I hear that. I see the Brewers to acquire Shelby Miller. That's no big thing to talk about. That's last minute. Shelby Miller's been around, Braves and Cardinals, and was supposed to be a top flight pitcher when he first burst onto the scene, if you recall. But I guess that's just for reinforcements. But wild and crazy MLB trade deadline deals. And Val, I appreciate you hopping on board. Same for Baseball Purist. And for those who want to get more baseball or more sports-related content, stay right here on the YouTube channel at JAYREELZ, and you definitely won't miss out. And one more time before I sign off, yes, if anything does come down the pike with other deals that certainly I didn't expect to happen here over this half hour that had gone through the wire after this video or after this live, I will certainly post my thoughts, feelings, etc. on that later this evening. But that's what you got. Latest and greatest in baseball. Recapping just a frenzy of a day. A lot of teams making moves, acquiring players for the home stretch, the final less than 2 months of the season, as we get set for now the sprint begins. The sprint of the next 2 months to see who qualifies for the postseason come October. And then, as I said earlier on the podcast, I think it's going to be wide open this year. Now, if the Dodgers come back healthy, who knows? That could change things. But I wouldn't be surprised. You may get Seattle-Milwaukee as your World Series. Could you imagine? I know that would not. The powers that be, Rob Manfred and company, would be choking on their kale salads if that's the case. But I think baseball, they could be in for a good October. And let's see how this is all going to shake down. But next podcast coming at you Monday. I'll have my podcast pregame on Monday where I'm going to pull names from a hat, one name from a hat to join me as a guest on next Wednesday's live stream. So for those who want to tune in, we'll recap the weekend in baseball and anything else that's happening in sports on the Monday podcast pregame, 9:30 a.m. Eastern. And just keep it on the channel for any latest and greatest of what's happening in sports. And you know I got you covered. So from the South Bronx to South Beach to South Central to South Pacific and all points beyond, peace, love, and God bless everybody. Enjoy the baseball. Enjoy the weekend. Be safe. Stay cool. August is tomorrow. So live for the moment. Enjoy. And until next time, on the flip.